Hey guys, so what is going on? Welcome back to another video. As you guys can see, I am still in bed but being productive today. I've got a lot of things done already today. It is currently Tuesday, June 17th, and it is 1:54 p.m. I cooked myself some good breakfast. I made potatoes and pancakes, and yeah, today's been a really good day. Content is posted, and I told you guys I was going to be consistent, so here I am. So in this video, guys, I want to be more intentional. I told you guys my next video will be more intentional. So today we're going to be talking about independence. We're going to be talking about taking initiative and really just kind of accomplishing more in life. I think it's super imperative that everybody truly understand the importance of independence and truly master, you know, taking initiative in life, you know, not waiting around until, you know, just not waiting around. So first and foremost, let's get into the facts. So what does it mean to be independent, right? Independent is an adjective, right? It means not controlled by others in matter of opinion, conduct, or action. So this is super important to me, my journey, my story, and just to my childhood, my upbringing. And, you know, independence is pretty much something that a lot of people know who know me, I take value in. And, you know, at one point in my life, I was very prideful with my independence. I felt like, you know, I pretty much had to be independent. I had to do things on my own. You know, losing my dad at just the age of 5 years old, and, you know, seeing my mom, you know, raise me and my sister by herself, working 12-hour shifts at Verizon Wireless, and just seeing her drive, you know, just seeing her go nonstop, and just doing it all herself, of course, with the help of my family. It really made me feel like I had to do the same, and obviously not the same way, but just be independent. Like, I had to do it for my family. I had to do it because my mom did it. And, you know, a lot of those beliefs, you know, translated into self-sabotage, because at certain points in my life, in my journey, you know, moving to Atlanta from California, fresh out of high school, like, I didn't even give myself grace. I didn't even give myself a period to really understand, you know, what I was getting myself into with moving across the country. I decided to do something that was different and that could get me out of my environment to achieve more in life. And that alone really just brought me back to my childhood, just understanding like, wow, you know, me and my sister, we both left home as soon as we turned 18. We did not stay home. We did not, you know, stay with our mom until we were, you know, 21, 22, whatever. And there would have been nothing wrong with that. But I do think that me and my sister, we went through a lot of things that we probably wouldn't want our kids to go through, especially not our daughter, in order to be independent. And, you know, there were many reasons why my sister may have left home, and there were many reasons why I left home. I just wasn't satisfied with the environment in Sacramento. I wasn't satisfied with the people I saw in their day-to-day lives. I wasn't satisfied, so I left. And that was one of the main reasons. Like, hey, I could go to school in California, but I just felt like I wanted to get far away, and I wanted to go where people of color were successful, where people of color were living the lifestyles I wanted to live, and driving the type of cars that I wanted to drive, and running the type of businesses and having the careers that I wanted. And that's why I came here, right? I think I had the false belief that I had to do it on my own, and I did not. And it's just, you know, a full circle moment talking about this and, you know, being as far as I am now, because some people don't do enough to be independent and some people do too much. I didn't ask for help from other people who I wouldn't say I knew could help me, like other relatives and things like that, but they told me they could help. And sometimes, of course, people will say, hey, if you need anything, you know, but I'm not going to say not really mean it, because I don't think any of my family would do that. But y'all know what I'm trying to say, you know? And you kind of just feel like a burden. I feel like if I reached out and asked for money, I was a burden. I think there was only one time I asked my cousin Janae, and she's like really a big sister to me, for $50 because I needed something to eat. And this was probably like probably still my freshman year in college. But that was like the only time. And I think my god sister, Black, as well, I probably asked her for like $30 or $40 before too. But out of my whole college experience, I never asked for help. Now, don't get me wrong, people like willingly just did, helped me out, if it was holidays or if it was birthdays, there would be money and things like that. But I never asked for help, like when I really needed help, and I think, like I said, that goes back to self-sabotage, is that I had this belief that I had to do it on my own, and I really didn't. But because of that drive, because of that motivation, and even because of that belief, I was able to get ahead. I was forced to figure things out. I was forced to be in environments where I had to do more. I had to learn new things. I had to adapt to my environment. I had to adapt to being able to survive. And, for many years I've been here, I've been in survival mode. I've been surviving just, day-to-day life, surviving a domestic violence relationship, surviving, broken friendships, and, just surviving the flow of life, so far away from my family. And, probably after 2 years, like, this became my normal, it probably even sooner than that. But, being in survival mode became normal to me. It became a part of daily life. And I truly, truly will protect my kid with everything in me to not have to go through survival mode, because I was blessed to not be homeless out here in Atlanta. And I've never been close to being homeless. I have been in some transition periods where I would, move out of one apartment to another and might, need some place to crash for like a week or a month or two or whatever. That has happened before, but it was never just like, oh, I'm homeless, I have nowhere to go. Like, of course, before I would transition from apartments, like that only happened one time actually, where I was, actually, no, that happened twice, where I was transitioning and had to stay with somebody for like a couple weeks or whatever, but, which is normal, right? But for me, it was almost like degrading. And I associated, my success with my like value, how I seen myself, with the value I held for myself. And then, just, man, it just gets so deep. But ultimately, through those transition periods, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about, okay, guys, I kind of lost my train of thought, so we're back. But anyway, so throughout those transition periods, I would, look at my self-worth based on my success in life. And, at times I just would feel so less of myself if I wasn't where I wanted to be. I would feel so less of myself, if I had to move places I didn't want to move just because, I could only afford certain things. Of course, I never had to stay in the hood. I think the lowest rating was probably, of course, at Clark as far as my living situation. Because, Clark is in the hood already. So the house I stayed in right next to the library, it was definitely in the hood. Like I said, Clark is in the hood, but that would be probably one of the lowest, like, quality of places I stayed. But it was actually nice. I'm really talking about neighborhood wise. And then Mechanicsville. My apartment in Mechanicsville was actually nice. It was. But, of course it was like considered the hood. When I would tell people from Atlanta, like, I live in Mechanicsville, like, oh, you live in Mechanicsville? Like, really? Like, not really because it's not nice or not decent, but it's because of like the type of people it attracts, the type of people that live there and be around those apartments in that area. But I never had any issues. And it was actually crazy. Me and my friend, we stayed in the apartment right on the corner. So we were definitely iffy because it was just like somebody could just walk up and just do some weird stuff. But nothing ever happened. Like, never got tried. Nobody never did nothing. So God was definitely with us in that apartment. But I actually enjoyed living there. No cap. But I've been blessed to stay in decent places. Nothing crazy. But I wasn't still where I wanted to be. Because mind you, I was early on introduced to business by a good friend, Keon Edwards. And when I was introduced to business, that is really when I feel like I found my people. Being at Clark, I feel like there were a lot of people who didn't really relate to my circumstance, my situation. And I just didn't really feel like I fit in at Clark. It was very, very hard to find friends. Shout out to my other good friend, Kayla Weathers. She's literally like my only close girlfriend from college. And, we were opposites when we met, but we instantly just like related so much, and not even with our circumstance, but more so just our principles and our views on life. And so basically back to the entrepreneur side, once I was introduced to that, I felt like people in that environment, they really related to my story. They really related to, not coming from the best, upbringing, but really wanting more in life and seeking that and really going after it. And so that's when I really knew, okay, I can make this work. You know, I was still in survival mode, but now I have a purpose. Now I have drive to get out of this survival mode, to really do something and take care of my mom. So ultimately, like, that independence, you know, brought me to such a pivotal moment in my life, which was when I found entrepreneurship. And that's when my life really changed. And not that, oh, my living situation changed, or, you know, like everything just changed, but like, your life can change in a second. Your life can change based on an experience. Your life can change based on an encounter. So my life changed. You know, November of 2018 was when I first started my first business. Yeah, that's when my life started to change. And then, you know, fast forward like 3 years after that, you know, I was traveling all the time and, you know, taking trips and, you know, just really seeking more out of life. Let's talk about it. But anyways, it still brought me to the businesswoman I am today. It set the foundation and it molded me into being very hard-bodied when it comes to life, when it comes to challenges. And it led me to my true independence. And basically, guys, I just really wanted to come on here and say that being independent is a choice. It's a desire. You have to desire being independent. You have to desire and want to actually be able to do things on your own. If you never take initiative, you will never seek the true results that you want in life. And a lot of it has to do with independence. You can't expect somebody to always be there holding your hand along the way. You know, if you have the support of your family, like this is how I feel about independence also, like when it comes to dating. Now, one thing I will say, you know, as we close up this video, is dating does get difficult, or has been difficult in the past, because I'm so independent. I naturally desire a man who is very independent as well. And, you know, you try not to judge people who, you know, might have different situations than you or might not be as independent of you. It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you less of a woman. But at the same time, I've worked so hard to get where I've gotten. You know, I could have many times just went back home and just said, forget all of this. But I made it a point to salve it out and do everything in my power to make it work for me here in Atlanta, and make it work for my future, make it work for my mom, and to just do more than people in my family have, to make them proud and show them a way and tell them that it's possible. But at the same time, it's like, if a man is not at that level, and not even like business wise, just independence wise and taking initiative in life, it's kind of a turnoff. And at times God has humbled me to let me know that, you know, you're never gonna find that perfect match. Nobody's ever gonna check every single box of yours. So you do have to humble yourself. But I also have learned that you need to and you should set a standard. So, you know, moving forward in my dating career, it's like, if you're not where I'm at mentally, that's number one before anything. If you're not mentally where I'm at, it would just never work. You know, as far as other things, those things can possibly be fixed. Now, women, if you want an independent man, you need to be an independent woman, right? And man, I just want, like, this could be a whole discussion. Like, what does really being independent mean and look like? Like, you know, it could look like many ways, like I explained. You know, it matters what it means to you. Not to me, not to anybody else. It matters what it means to you. But overall, like I said, women, focus on what you can bring to the table, and don't ever expect more from a man than you expect from yourself. And that's in anything: standards, living situation, mentality, mindset, salary, income, whatever it is. Don't expect more from him than you expect from yourself, because at the end of the day, independence should come from within. Now, there are a lot of people who, women specifically, that may not be as independent as a man, and then rely on that man. And then whether you have a kid with him or not, or you marry him or not, you know, end up falling on hard times. Or not even that. They end up maybe not being together. And then that woman now has to figure out what to do. And that woman has to now gain her independence, when you should have already had your independence before you even got with a man. Especially if you're dealing with a successful man who has a lot of money, you want to make sure you can match his success in some sort of way, or you can match his independence in some sort of way. Don't ever feel like you're stable off of somebody else's work. Then that's very key. Make sure you always have your own bank account, own mindset, own principles, own morals, own everything, own life savings, own life insurance policy. You need your own everything. But overall, guys, take initiative by being independent. Be independent by taking initiative. And remember that independence is power, and power is independence. And we're gonna need to do a part 2. You know, I don't want to give y'all too much juice, too much sauce to where y'all losing track. But hopefully you guys gained something from this video. I'm super excited to be on here today, and I can't wait for my next drop. So make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe. Love you guys. See you guys in the next video.